Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Maximilian College Basketball Conference Tournament previews. And for today, we will be going over picks and analysis for the Atlantic 10 tournament. And before we jump in, as always, subscribe, and check out all the other conference previews up on my channel. I got a bunch going. There's a ton that start this week, so I'm going to try and get them all in. I may have to skip a couple ones that I don't like, but this was one I just could not skip because there is so much going on in this conference. And now what I mean by that, the seeding is crazy in this tournament. They got the one seed right in St. Louis, obviously. Pretty self-explanatory there. They did their work for the first, three quarters of conference play. Yeah, struggled down the stretch a little, but maybe they were just checked out. I don't know. All three of their losses were on the road. You're going to get an inspired effort every time. And, they didn't really need it. So, struggling a little, but I think St. Louis is going to, get back on track. And then VCU, the 2 seed, they got that one right as well. Now, after that, it is madness. So I did have to pull over. I took the Ken Palm net ratings here because St. Louis, they get a terrible draw. Like I said, they're the number 1 net rating team, obviously. VCU's number 2. Now, after that is where it gets crazy. The third best team is Dayton at 10.6, and they're on St. Louis's side as the 4th seed. Now, the next highest rated team at 4 is actually George Washington at 9.76. Now, why is George Washington 8 and 10? Well, their best player, Rafael Castro, who I pulled over, he's ahead of Robbie Avila in the Ken Palm, A10 player standings. And, I'm sure you know who Robbie Avila is. So, yeah, this Rafael Castro is huge for this team, but he's been hurt for like a lot of conference play. That's why they're 8 and 10 and struggling. But he just recently came back. So that changes everything here. So now you've got in the A10, you've got the 9 seed as the 4th best team. And, before the season, I had them slated as the 2nd best team in this conference. I was really high on George Washington. I like VCU, and, Dayton is always respectable as well. But this George Washington team getting a 9, that is, very unfortunate here for St. Louis. Because like I said, they're one of the best teams in this conference when they're at full strength, and they are currently at full strength. Now, another thing that stands out here, St. Joe's, a net rating of +4 here, and they are the 3 seed. There is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams ranked ahead of them in this conference, and they're the 3 seed. So just really wacky here. The top is so much. Even George Mason at the 5. Look at their net rating. They're 11 and 7 in the conference, +8 net rating. Like, the top region is just insane. Because on top of everything, St. Louis has been so good, so they're clearly the favorite here in the odds board. At +130, but I hope St. Louis wins it. I'm really high on this team. I know they struggled lately, but I do think, I do think a little bit was luck too. Just bad shooting splits as well. They were kind of maybe due for that as well. They were running so hot, but this team is the best team in the conference, and but the seeding did them absolutely no favors here. A potential George Washington, and then the winner of George Mason or Dayton. Both those teams have already beat St. Louis. St. Louis did much better against the bottom half of this bracket here, and then in the finals you potentially got VCU. So crazy draw here. And, I think for that reason, you've got to attack the bottom half of this bracket here. Davidson really stood out at the 6th seed here. What are their odds? 25-1. The reason why they're so low is because the draw is fantastic. Like I said, St. Joe's at 11-1. Let's see here. St. Joe's +4 net rating. Davidson +5.9. So you have a chance where Davidson would, they'll be favored in that first game against Richmond or Loyola, and then they would probably be a small favorite against the 3 seed St. Joe's. So, and then, all of a sudden, then you're in the semifinals with a 25-1 ticket, probably playing VCU there. Played them once, lost by 6. So, I mean, kind of close there, but no reason to think they wouldn't have a chance. I mean, they have a better chance of beating VCU than St. Louis or some of the teams in the top half of this bracket. So, I don't know. This one was just very interesting, needed to be talked about here because, like I said, the top half is just so much better. St. Louis got no favors at all on this draw. And I really hope, I mean, I'm pretty sure St. Louis is comfortably in the tournament. I don't know. I haven't looked at – I try not to look at bracketology too much. It drives me crazy. I think it's terrible content, and it's just annoying. But, I mean, I think St. Louis is comfortably in, even if they do lose to George Washington, which I would assume George Washington here is a pretty favorable favorite against Fordham. I'd say about like 6 points. So I think they win that one. Then that St. Louis game will be very, very interesting. So because like I said, with this team just has not been the same without Rafael Castro, some of the biggest splits in the conference. So, as far as a betting standpoint, I'm definitely not taking St. Louis at plus 130. I think that's ridiculous for a team that's going to be favored probably by single digits every game, So it's tough to take that. VCU plus 180. I mean, yeah, they got a great draw, VCU here to make. I know I talked about the Davidson route, but VCU, great draw. Like I said, that bottom half of the bracket is just not very strong. So, I mean, there's a pretty good chance that they are in the final. In fact, I mean, Bart Torvik does percentages, chance for each conference tourney to make the final and win it and stuff. So let's pull those up actually, because now I'm curious. Okay, yeah, here. So St. Louis has a 54% chance to make the finals. VCU 53%. So they literally have the very, very similar draws here. The next favorite is Dayton at 26%. So no surprise there that 2 of the top 3 favorites to make the final are in that top region because, like I said, just so much better. Oh, and Davidson has a 37% chance to make the semifinals and a 15% chance to make the finals. So, like I said, I think that's the route to go. I mean, George Mason, they're kind of up and down. If they were on the bottom, like if you switched 5 and 6, like George Mason, you'd rather be the 6th seed here, then I'd probably take them. Just the St. Joe's draw as the 3 is fantastic. So, yeah, very interesting things here happening in this conference. Had to talk about it. Again, here's the net ratings are, you got 8 and 10. George Washington is one of the best teams in this conference when they're healthy, and they're the 9 seed. So a lot of craziness here. I think the top half of this bracket will be fun to watch. But from a betting standpoint, I would attack VCU. I mean, if you like St. Joe's, they got a good draw, but I mean, like I said, I don't think they're very good. Very fortunate to have as many wins as they do with that net rating. So, I mean, I think if you like anybody, I'm not a fan of Rhode Island away from home, but Duquesne, if you think they can maybe beat VCU or Davidson, like I said, would be the team that I would look to. So, yeah, very weird here. I'm not taking St. Louis here at plus 130. I would need more than that. I actually think VCU should be the favorite to win this tournament just because of the favorable draw. But yeah, just to recap here, basically, I mean, I'm not taking St. Louis, and it's nothing against them. I hope they win. I know they're the best team in this conference, but that's just a horrible draw. They're going to have some tough games there. So, and, they have been tripping up here down the stretch, so you never know there. So I would look towards VCU or honestly anybody in that bottom bracket. If you want a little Duquesne at 60-1, if you want a little Davidson at 25-1, I just think those are better value plays here to maybe just make the finals, and then you can go from there. So yeah, this was very interesting, the seeding line here in this one. So this was a fun one to talk about, but yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking for this one. And that will do it for today's Atlantic 10 tournament preview. Thanks so much for watching, and go ahead, like, subscribe, and check out all the other conference previews up on my channel. Best of luck, everyone.